How do I become more self-disciplined? If you're asking yourself that question, then guess what? You're already moving in the right direction. You're already multiple steps ahead of the pack. Just the fact that you're inquiring and you're wanting to know, how do I become disciplined? And last week we had a conversation. You want to go back to it if you missed last week. And I mentioned self-discipline, but I also mentioned I'm going to cover it a little bit more here because it required just a little bit more conversation than we had in last week's episode. Look, I don't think you can fix lazy. I'm not here to help people fix lazy. That's not my job. I'm here to help people that want to be helped. To, if you're unclear, unsure, don't know how, want it, but you don't know how to get there, to give you the directions essentially to get wherever it is that you want to go in all sorts of different aspects in the network marketing space. So let's talk about self-discipline, right? And again, I mentioned last week that one of the great definitions that I've heard, in fact, I would even suggest go Google discipline. Go Google the definition of self-discipline. I remember being at a Bob Proctor seminar, and he said, discipline is, here's a great definition of discipline. It's giving yourself an order and following through on that order. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Like me telling myself to do something and then actually doing it. But man, it's so hard. How many times do you want to do something and you keep telling yourself over and over again, I'm going to do it, and then you don't do it. And that's so frustrating. I can honestly tell you that, I've dealt with that in different areas of my life, and it's incredibly frustrating. That's why I've come to the conclusion that this whole concept, for example, of like how you do one thing is how you do everything, and I firmly don't believe that at all. I probably said it, over a decade ago when I didn't really understand it, but I do agree with how you get good at one thing is how you get good at everything. So definitely don't believe in the former. So let's talk about that because it's, you're here, you're wanting to get more done and, be more on top of your game, which is a beautiful thing. So like I said, it's a step in the right direction. I'm going to go through 10 items in today's episode and then leave it up to you to do the work. So number one, and I mentioned this last week, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the whole idea of setting clear goals, okay? Again, it's like here's the thing, sometimes we hear stuff and I know this because I've done it, and I just know how people function and operate. You hear something over and over again, and it's like you keep hearing it over and over again, and you keep hearing it over and over and over again, and typically one of two things happens. One, you're like, oh my gosh, I keep hearing the same thing from all these successful people about this is what I need to do in order to be successful. Oh, that's a clue. I better be doing that. Or, I've already heard it. And I don't think the second answer is really good. There's a term I heard a long time ago, success leaves clues. Like if you're hearing from somebody, if you want to be successful in blank, this is what you need to do. And you hear it from 5 different people who don't even know each other, and they're saying the same thing, and they're highly successful in that which you want to become successful in, might be a sign that you need to be doing that. So my question to you really is, do you have goals? Do you have them written down? Are you clear and specific as to what exactly you want in your life? What do you want to achieve? What things that you want to do, experiences that you want to have? Because if you don't have those things, it's like, how can you be disciplined when you don't even have anything to shoot for? Make sense? So I know because I've done events with thousands of people and of network marketers, like people that are in the game, in the business. And I'm like, okay, how many of you have right now, be honest, be 100% honest, you have clearly written down goals on paper of what it is that you want to achieve? And there's a very high percentage of the population in every time I've done this in an audience where they don't have them. So why I haven't taken the time to, I don't know that a bunch of networkers are lazy. Maybe they don't, even though they've heard it a million times, like maybe they don't realize how important it is. And if you've ever set a goal, an intention or an objective that you wanted to accomplish, and I got to have that thing. I got to, that it created motivation. It created a degree of discipline because you had something to shoot for. So look, they can't be gray. They can't be blurry. They can't be fuzzy. They've got to be really, really clear goals. Number 2 is, look, you've got to create a routine, okay? So, I think that people, I have a specific routine. People talk about this all the time in network marketing. Sometimes it's referred to as your DMO, your daily method of operation. But what's your daily routine? Do you have a laid out routine? Okay, again, we're talking specifically in this case about your business. Do you have a routine that you follow? Do you have, a plan in place that you follow each and every day? Or is it just kind of shooting from the hip and whatever happens, happens? And I don't know that, I just don't think that's a good strategy. Do you, what's your routine? For example, wake up, set your alarm if you need to set your alarm. My body just gets up when it gets up, and it's early every day. And the first thing that I do is I go work out, and it's typically yoga in the morning. So that's part of my routine. It's actually in my calendar. When I come home, the second part of my routine is to do my first social media post of the day, and to just quickly check email and respond to things that need to be responded to after I've initiated a couple of important tasks. And then I get into the actual tasks of the day, whatever those tasks may be, and there are priorities. For example, me doing this, what I'm talking to you about right now. This is part of my routine, and that routine is blocked in my calendar. So I guess the question I would have for you is, do you have a routine? And if you don't have a routine, then might be a good time to start one. And if you don't know, look, let me just say this. As a network marketer, a big part of your routine, a big part of the time that you're devoting to the business should be focused on flipping rocks over, should be focused on exposure, should be focused on invites. That should be, especially for somebody brand new who has no team or a small team, that's almost all of your time. So, if I were to ask you straight up, hey, what's your daily routine? And you're like, I don't have one, then, it's probably not going to work out so well for you. And there's something about when you have a routine, when you have a plan in place, oh, well, okay, that's the plan. It's kind of like let's say you're going to go someplace. You're going to go for a weekend camping trip, and you're in your calendars. You're leaving at 4:00 on Friday, and you're getting ready to bail with the family. Well, you need to know. I'm sure you know that you got to get some food and firewood and other stuff, whatever you need. Pack the car, get ready, make sure the kids have got their stuff packed properly. They bring the warm clothes or whatever. So there's probably just kind of a built-in routine that you have. I know because I do a lot of camping, a lot of family camping. I have a very specific routine, even with stuff like that. So if it's in your calendar, this thing, we're leaving for the river property at 4:00 on Friday. Okay, cool. Well, I know that ahead of time I've got to do this, 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 and this. I have a specific routine. I know what my routine is. Versus somebody who's I don't even know. Do we bring food? Do we pack clothes? Do we sleeping bags? I don't know. What do we just go? And then you go there and it's not. It doesn't work out very well. Let's just say that. And then the next thing is number 3 is prioritizing tasks. Right. So you've got different tasks and responsibilities. And look, everything that I'm saying and sharing with you here today can be applied into everything that you do in your life, in your other company or your other business or your full-time job or just whatever. So okay, so what's most important? What needs to be done? I would say, again, if we're just narrowing in on network marketers that are independent reps in the field, your number one task every day is talking to people, is exposing people. I already mentioned that. So if that's the case, right? A little itchy eye, excuse me. If that's the case, then okay, I'm going to prioritize my day accordingly, and I'm going to make sure that I'm knocking out, I'm getting, here's the thing. If you started, let's say you're part of your routine, I get up in the morning, I go to the gym, come back, eat breakfast, meditate, gratitude, whatever you're doing, and then boom, the first big task of the day is you're prospecting. Well, you got a 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. block of prospecting. And I'm not saying you do this, but let's say you had the ability to be, you're already full time and your schedule was yours and you didn't have any other responsibilities. Well, I mean, you knock out 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in prospecting, and you just knocked out 2 straight hours of prospecting. Boom, you're already moving in the right direction. I mean, I wouldn't say don't do any more prospecting the rest of the day if you have the rest of the day ahead of you, but by prioritizing the most important tasks, it's just a beautiful thing. All of this stuff compounds upon itself when it comes to being more disciplined. And then like if you have what's his number? I don't know, number 4. If you have something big, some big thing, whatever that thing is. And I don't know that there's, I suppose like somebody who's leading a team, for example, might have to put together this getting started, fast start training program for their organization, or they have to put some team website together to, provide support and assistance for the masses of people that are coming into your organization. And that big project could be, wow, that's a big project, like this big task. But if you chunk it down or break it up into smaller bite-sized pieces, it's easier to knock that stuff out. You look at this whole big thing and it's like, oh my gosh. And I'm totally guilty of this in a number of different areas in my business where I've done this, where I give myself too much stuff. And I'm the one that gives me the stuff. And then I give myself so many projects and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I start? And my assistant, she's so funny. She's like, just if I was in your office and I know we're working on this project, I would take away all these other projects so you don't even see them. And this is what we're doing. So I know that I've been guilty of it, but that's the thing is again, if you got some big project or big thing that you're working on, just break it up into smaller chunks. You break it up into smaller chunks, it's gonna work out great for you. And then you feel a sense of accomplishment. Okay, I got this big project, cool. Well, I've got 8 different parts of that big project. Well, I knocked out this little one, number 1, boom, knocked out number 2, boom, knocked out number 3. It's like, ooh, accomplishment. Boom, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my gosh, I'm done. And before you were looking at it as this big gigantic thing, and it's like, wow. I don't know how you work, but if I give myself too much, and I'm looking at all these different things, I become overwhelmed, and then I don't do anything. So. And I'm aware of that. So everybody operates differently, I think, but you got to know how you function, how you operate. And if something that's a big, giant responsibility is in front of you and you can't even take a step into it because it seems so big, then you need to put it into bite-sized chunks. Number 5 is eliminating distractions. So look, I think anything can distract us. Like if we don't have goals, if we don't have objectives, if we don't have our mindset on something that we're going for, I think anything will become a distraction. But even when you do, okay, I have a goal, I have an objective, I have a plan, I'm moving towards this plan. There's a lot of things that can become a distraction. Something is doing the laundry, doing the dishes, so a friend stops by your house or, whatever it is. I'm not going to name every distraction because there's all sorts of distractions, but you got to do your best to, not allow little things to pull you away from that which you're getting after. And I think that's, even as I say it, I know that's a challenge because there's always things that come up. There's always reasons to not stay focused and not continue to do. But if you, like I mentioned in last week's episode, I believe I mentioned last week's episode, but something as simple as closing my door, right? So if I close my door in my office, then first of all, I'm in an enclosed environment. I don't hear any outside noise. There's typically not a lot of outside noise, but I don't hear stuff like that might be going on. What is that? Sometimes, even for me, working in and I do this, if I've got specific type of work to do, I'll go work out of a coffee shop, for example, if I'm doing writing or something like that. But sometimes, all the noise and the stuff around me can be a distraction. And if there's a particular thing, for example, prospecting, I won't prospect on the phone in a coffee shop with all that noise and all that stuff going on because I'm distracted. The person who, where are you at? It's noisy where you're at. It's just not really a good format to to be prospecting, when you're talking to people, unless I'm sitting, one-on-one with you and we're having a coffee together, for example, that would make sense. But that's an important thing. What number are we at now? I think we're at number 6, I believe. So number 6 is the whole idea of time management. I always think that's an interesting term, time management. Well, you can't really manage time, you can't bend time, but you can manage yourself in time. And I think I'm pretty confident it's called the Pomodoro technique, where you basically you sit there and you knock out a project, then you give yourself a break, or you knock out a bit of time. Let's say, okay, for example, I talk a lot about power hours in network marketing. You do 60 minutes of uninterrupted prospecting and recruiting time. That's all you're doing, totally focused for 60 minutes. Give yourself a little break, re-energize yourself, and then come back at it. But we've got to figure out how to manage ourselves in time, right? Look, I'm not going to go into every single time management strategy. I'm sure that's Googleable and you can figure that out. But something for me personally, and I would say I definitely utilize that technique. I'll bust it out and then I'll give myself a small reward, or I'll give myself a little break. But look, here's the other thing, guys. There's times where you need to sit down and hunker down and get after it until it's done. Whatever that thing is that you're getting after. And I've done days, for example, where I've prospected all day long for like 12, 15 hours. I've done days where I've done video production all day, non-stopping. I'm toast at the end of the day. And I'm not necessarily applying the Pomodoro technique, but there is a time and a place where you just really need to hunker down and get what done. So that's number 6 is time management. Number 7, I think having a degree of self-awareness is super important. Like we all function differently. I'm sure we all have similarities, but we're all individuals, and so you need to know how you operate, how you function, what things impact you, what things inspire you to want to do more, and which things strip away the motivation from you. As I'm saying this, it makes me think of for example, how we communicate with people. Like, for example, if we were talking about the concept of like the colors of the personality, and it's done in different ways, but red, blue, yellow, green. Red, aggressive, assertive. Blue, loves to have a blast. Green is like super analytical and needs to know all the numbers. And I'm sitting there talking to you, and I'm talking, you're going to make so much money, you can crush this thing, and blah, blah, blah. And you're a yellow personality, and you just want to save the world. I'm not communicating to you in a proper manner. It's like I'm speaking to you in a foreign language. So it's important for you as an individual, if you want to be more self-disciplined, to find out what are your triggers. Like, what are the things that fire you up, and what are the things that strip the motivation away from you. And that's up to you to figure out what those things are. Number 8, build momentum. There's something beautiful about momentum. It's like you get a little thing going, you get it going a little more, you get it going a little more. And it's kind of like even when I talk about somebody sitting down and prospecting, the first call, the second call, the third reach out, the fourth reach out, the next, it's kind of hard, it's kind of slow, it's maybe a little bit awkward, but then you kind of get moving and you get grooving. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, what's the phrase? An object in motion stays in motion, right? So if you're able to create, first of all, you can't create momentum with no action. But momentum actually feeds, having a little bit of discipline to get yourself moving and getting yourself going. And once you get going, it's actually easier to stay moving than it is to stop, because for example, oh boy, it was a little rough around the edges the first couple times, but then you got going, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, that was amazing. I crushed that. So I don't know. There's something to be said about creating some momentum in helping you to stay, motivated, to stay disciplined. But again, you've got to be the person that takes some kind of an action to create a little bit of momentum. And if you create a little bit of momentum, I don't know, it feels pretty good. Momentum feels pretty good. A little progress, a little movement in the right direction. Man, this is good. I like the way this feels. It's kind of like eating clean for like a week, right? You're like, wow, I feel different. I feel better. I feel more energetic. I don't feel as sluggish. I don't feel so tired. It's the same thing I'm talking about here in network marketing. You can do that, but obviously got to take a little bit of the action first. Number 9 is practice a little delayed gratification, if you will, right? Focusing on the long term and the rewards, the things that there's nothing wrong with short-term, short-term rewards, like a job well done, giving yourself a pat on the back or a little bit of a break or, some kind of celebration. But you have to know that there's a degree when it comes to bigger things, when it comes to some degree of accomplishment in your life. You're like, oh, I got to the top rank in the company, or I got to $100,000 a year, or I got to whatever. You got to know that, you can give yourself a big reward then. And how cool is that? Like, okay, as soon as I get to $10,000 a month in network marketing, I'm taking my spouse out on a 7-day trip in some cool, warm, tropical place. That in and of itself is like the goal might be to get to that level, but then there's a reward. Not only is there the reward of making more money, but then you've built in this delayed gratification reward for yourself that even makes you probably more motivated to go for it, because, man, as soon as I hit that, this is what I'm going to do. That's the same thing I did with, I remember, and I mentioned this last week, like the first status symbol for me of success was a gold Rolex. And that was a reward for me. It was a goal, but it was also like a delayed gratification reward based on my earnings. So I waited until I had X amount of earnings and I could go pay for it cash, and it didn't impact me financially at all to go and buy that watch. And it was something that honestly kept me, it kept me very disciplined. I mean, it might be very, I don't know, shallow, if you will, whatever. I mean, I was young and that was a status symbol for me early, but it was definitely something that kept me moving. And number 10 is being committed and resilient, staying committed and resilient. The word resilience really resonates with me when it comes to network marketing, mostly because we're always, we get no's, we get rejection, if you will. I don't believe that we get rejection. I mean, that's a term that's used. I think rejection is a matter of taking things personally, but the ability to bounce back is literally one of the most powerful things. Like if you can get knocked down and get back up, get knocked down and get back up, have a person quit and keep going. Have 5 people in a row tell you no. Have the next 4 say yes and then say no. If you can be that guy or girl, you're in a good position. And it's like the Chinese proverb is, I don't know, I'm probably not going to say it exactly, but it's like, get knocked down 7 times, stand up 8. Like if you can just keep getting back up on the horse, that is a beautiful quality. But to get knocked down and then just stay laying on the floor, that's no bueno. So I don't know. It's just an important part of the journey. And if you know now, like for example, this last point. If you know that it's totally important for me to succeed in life, to succeed in this business, that I have to stay committed, right? And that commitment that I have, like I made a commitment, and because of the commitment that I made to this endeavor, okay, because of the commitment, I have to be self-disciplined. I made the commitment, and commitment and self-discipline go along with one another. And with the commitment and with the self-discipline, okay, I have to be resilient, because sometimes I'm going to get knocked down. I'm going to get beaten up. Some days are going to be great. Some days are going to be shitty. And that's just the way it is. And on a shitty day, you're able to get back up and get after it again and go do it again. That is a quality, you guys, that is so utterly important as network marketers. And if you can do these things, that I've shared with you today, I think you'll find yourself becoming, I don't know, you'll be a happier person, you'll be more successful, you'll be more fulfilled. There's something beautiful about self-discipline. So anyhow, that's enough for today. I appreciate you guys. If you're on my podcast, what's up, audio folks on my podcast? Appreciate you, as well as my YouTube friends. The conversation, it takes place here at toddfalcone.com/episode 233. That's this episode. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you later.